This is, you lied to me.
He lied to me.
Okay. Now we're ready. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting. This is a meeting of the Select Board. It is Monday, February 26, 2024. It is now 7 p.m., and we are in the training room at the Public Safety Complex. We are going to have an executive session following the regular meeting agenda items pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21.3 for collective bargaining for the police union. First, I have the consent items. There are 4 of them. I will do as we usually do, and I will read them. If anybody has any objections, please voice your objection, and we will move that item to the regular agenda. So, number 1, approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on February 12th, 2024. Number 2, approve the meeting minutes from the executive meeting held on February 12th, 2024. Number 3 is to approve the placement of the Bay Path Regional Vocational Technical High School Committee position, that was a mouthful, and the Richards Memorial Library Board of Trustees position on the ballot for the next election to fill the current vacancies in accordance with MGL Chapter 41, Section 10. And the last one is a 1-day liquor license request from Anna Maria College at the Fuller Gymnasium for Spring Week College Student Dance on April 18th, 2024, from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m., run by Sodexo Food Service Company. Any objections to any of the consent items?
No.
Hearing none, I declare that they have passed. And now we have an update from Anita Fenton for the COA to discuss their bylaws. Come on up, Anita.
Okay, we've already discussed how the bylaw for the COA was passed on May 5th, 1975, for 7 members for 4-year terms. In 1996, it was changed to 9 members for 3-year terms. And in 2013, it merely stipulated that the Board of Selectmen would appoint. And the reason behind having a real bylaw it's nice to have a real bylaw because this actually gives the reason for its existence, the activities of the different officers, and the purpose of it, and what we try to do, and the importance of associate memberships, which is part of the basis for how we keep our board alive and well. When someone resigns, there's someone who's interested, and we give you their name. And if you looked at all the redacted parts that were put in by the town council, Joan Bedard, the vice chair, did an excellent job of removing them. And so then we went and processed what we would like to add or modify. So I know it's really confusing when a section B becomes a section G or D. So I tried to make it a little clearer by giving you the changes. So Article 4, membership, Section 2 will now read, the COA Board shall recommend to the Select Board candidates to fill vacancies on the COA Board, including vacancies due to the resignation of a board member. Now, the objection frequently found by the town council was when we said, have selected a name to give to you, and that we recommend now. So we're pulling back.
Okay.
So we go from select to recommend. So obviously that's what he wanted, and that's what we did. Let's see, Article 7, attendance and resignation, Section 2 to read, in the event that a member wishes to resign from the COA Board, they shall notify the COA Board and the town clerk in writing, and the COA Board shall notify the Select Board of such resignation and recommend a replacement. There again, vacancies, whether it's resignation, end of term, or whatever, we would give you the name of someone we feel is appropriate. And finally, Article 9, COA Director. Now, this sentence was removed, and we modified it and put it back because we felt it was important that the director is described with her major duties. And this one, the director, Section D to read, The director recommends individuals for staff position and coordinates volunteers. There again, she does not hire. She does not select. She merely recommends staff positions, and it makes sense that she will coordinate volunteers, because she knows for every program what is needed, instead of having to go to the town administrator and say, I need 5 volunteers. So we figured these are small changes. I put in occasional S's where I did not put S's for open meeting laws, but other than that, we have followed probably 90% or greater the redacted sections so that we've eliminated them, and I think we made it more palatable, and we made it shorter, and so hopefully it's more concise. And as I say, I would hope this gets on as a regular warrant article, but we were concerned if I gave it to you and it had to go to town council, and then it had to come back, because sometimes getting a quorum is not a piece of cake, and we were afraid we would miss the March 12th. So hopefully, it'll get on as a warrant that you feel is an appropriate article, as opposed to a citizen's petition, but we had to have a Plan B, because we didn't want to have to wait till the fall.
Sure.
So other than that, if you have any questions on the changes?
I have none, personally. I'll open it up.
No, I don't have any questions.
I read through it and it was it's reasonable. So.
I thought it was very well written. Yeah,
Oh, good, thank
Yeah.
you. Can I say one other thing?
sure.
Our Paxton resident art show will begin March 6th.
Yes.
And we're inviting everyone to come to the cafe, which starts at 9:30. We hope to have the artists come too. And we didn't get quite as many people as would have liked, and I think people are intimidated, but please don't, because we actually had some beautiful crewel embroidery from 1980. So just if you haven't created something over the last 2 years, look in your closet, look, under the bed. There may be something wonderful you've made, photographs or whatever, and we would love to have them for the next show. So remember, March 6th, 9:30 to 10, there'll be a cafe, and we hope to get the artwork up this weekend.
I need to get in touch with you about that, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, Anita, a couple quick questions for you. I would have got back to you sooner, but today's day 1. So,
Okay.
so on the section 2, so the COA board shall recommend. So I noticed in the redacted version from Brian Falk, he had suggested may recommend. Is it possible that the reason he wrote may as opposed to shall is if for some reason the COA board has trouble, like maybe you guys can't meet because you don't have a quorum, or maybe there's some other hesitation? I think he was probably just putting in the may versus the shall to give you guys the option for some reason if you can't do it, or it takes too long for you guys to be able to recommend. Let's say you can't get a quorum for 3 months.
Oh,
And you
God
wanna fill that
forbid.
position.
No.
But I think that's why he put may there instead of shall. But my real question here is, do you think it's necessary to add that last line there, including vacancies due to a resignation of a board member? Wouldn't we be able to cover that if we said, shall recommend to the select board candidates to fill all vacancies on the COA board? And then that
Well,
covers you?
later on, there is a special area for attendance and resignation, so we figured to cover all sections, there was no reason to not put it in. I mean, it might be redundant, but it's not illegal. That's
Okay.
all I care about now.
Okay, and then my last one, so at the very bottom, so the director recommends individuals for staff positions. All right, is the director recommending those individuals for the staff positions to the COA board or to the town administrator? 'Cause it doesn't
Well,
say, it's silent.
well, if you remember, it says that the director shall,
Report.
I think,
Yeah.
section 3, the director shall report to the town administrator. So it
Okay.
would be to the town administrator.
Should we just put that in there to clarify that? Because then we don't, this role obviously has nothing to do with coordinating volunteers, and we would never
Right.
want to add more stuff to the TA, but just to clarify who they're reporting to.
Whatever makes your day. That's
I
fine.
can make
I'm
a-
just looking
No,
for clarity
it's
so in the
just,
future.
it's,
if you look at other bylaws in other towns, right? COAs are set up a little bit different in every community. In
Right.
some communities, they would recommend to the COA board, and sometimes they would recommend to the town administrator to hire. I'm just looking for clarification here, so in the future, people have it very clear, and they don't have to go refer to the charter to figure out the answer to the question.
That's fine. That's fine, if you'd like to put that phrase in.
I think if I can make a suggestion here, we can probably vote as a select board tonight. And then if there's any small, to put this on the warrant, then if there's any small tweaks that you want to make between Heather and yourself in order to make sure that, the bylaws
The terminology is,
fits with what you both want, then I think that would be fine.
I do understand.
so contact Heather in the future, is that?
No, just we still have to approve it to go on the
Right,
warrant. I think
right.
we're prepared to do that, but any small changes that you want to make, if there's anything that, because she had a few questions tonight, so if there's a few things that you and she maybe need to hash out, still just minor details, I don't think that impacts our vote tonight. And so you can do that offline with Heather, and then we'll
Okay.
go ahead and make a recommendation tonight.
Great.
Does that
And
sound okay?
I
Thank
do understand under section D where, Heather, it's not definitive as to who the director recommends individuals to. So just to kind of put
Put in to about,
the
to recommends to Heather?
yeah, to the
To the
TA,
town
whatever.
Well, that'd be
just
very
so
hard
that
to
there's
build
that-
I mean,
in the
not,
future.
yes.
You'd have a Heather forever.
There's-
To
there's-
Heather
They'd be keeping
forever.
their
To
names.
forever Heather? No,
The-
to the town administrator.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
a non-debative factor with a period after it as to who they report to.
Okay. Are we all
Yeah,
set?
I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to place the COA bylaw on the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
You're welcome.
Nice job with that. Okay. All right, so next item, under new business, we have discussed potential for an override to balance the FY '25 budget. I did send a message over to the chair of the finance committee inviting any member of the, obviously it's an open meeting, but I wanted to expressly invite any member of the finance committee who wanted to attend. So that invitation was made just in case they wanted to hear this, although I suspect that tonight we're just going to have a very preliminary discussion. There's still a few numbers out there that are fluid, and so we can't really speak much in terms of specifics, but I think we have a general idea of where we need to go.
Yep.
So I did prepare a statement, if you want to put it that way, just to make sure that I put this out there the way that I want to put it out there. So, if you're okay with it, I'll
Yeah,
go ahead. and
go ahead.
Please.
to get us going anyways. So, it has become abundantly clear, as our projected budget numbers are closing in on accuracy, that this is going to be a pivotal year for the budget in the town of Paxton. We are currently looking at a larger deficit than I have seen in my tenure on the board, and I've seen quite a few difficult budget years, as Carol can attest. As a town, we have for many years now found ways to address our deficits through some equilibrium between cuts and one-time revenues. In the process, we have become unfortunately dependent on utilizing not only all of our free cash, but also using more revenue from ambulance receipts in order to balance the budget. These are revenues that are not guaranteed. The best practice is to use one-time revenues only for one-time expenses, or to put them away in stabilization and capital. We've been trying to avoid a substantial override for longer than I've been on the board. The last overrides passed were in 2018. They were small, $100,000 for the operating budget and $300,000 for the Wachusett budget. And at that time, we recommended only enough to meet the need for that year. We have been doing the equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck and not putting away for our future. Through the yeoman's work of the Finance Committee and the Select Board over the years, we have managed within our means, hoping that things would eventually improve. Unfortunately, it has become more clear over the years that we were only delaying the inevitable, as we saw things like insurance rate hikes with Obamacare, the economic impacts of COVID, and the state formula for school budgets, which does our town no favors. Now, to shed a little light on what we are seeing this year, we have a deficit currently sitting between 600 and 700,000. I can't get super specific on the numbers because, as I mentioned a moment ago, they're still fluid. However, currently, even if we reduce the budget to only those items we have little or no control over, essentially, that would be schools, insurance, benefits, retirement, contracts, and utilities, and level fund all other items, we are still looking at a very large deficit. In order to balance this budget, cuts to departments would be substantial and would have a devastating effect on the level of services provided to our residents. We would be looking at a much different town in terms of the services offered, particularly from larger departments, which include public safety and the DPW, which would have to shoulder a larger portion of the burden. As I mentioned, we're still waiting some budget numbers. As for schools, we have a projected 5% increase in the Wachusett school budget. And we should know in a few days what that number actually is, but I believe 5% is likely to prove to be a rather conservative estimation. For reference, a 6% increase adds an additional $75,000 to our deficit. It's my understanding that BayPath's assessment came in a full 20% higher than last year. We will have more detail on that when we meet with them shortly. In my opinion, we have no choice this year but to recommend a sizable override. It was recommended by our interim town administrator, Charlie Blanchard, and I agree, given what we are seeing, that we should look to pass an override that will not just sustain us for this year and then ultimately put us in the same position next year and the year after, but one that will serve as a budget correction and end our reliance on one-time revenues so that we can plan for and stabilize our future as a town. I am forever grateful to Charlie, who came in as an interim at such a key moment for us, and with his experience both in other towns and here in Paxton, he was able to provide some real clarity on this issue. This is still a very fluid subject without finalized numbers, as I mentioned several times now. We know enough, however, to realize that this year we're not going to be able to find enough one-time revenue along with cuts in order to make the ends meet. Based on Charlie's analysis, it is clear that cuts of the magnitude that would be necessary this year would reduce the services that the town provides to a level that would be unacceptable for the community, and then an override is necessary. So that's my opinion in really not so much of a nutshell. So I would entertain any comments that either of you have, or any thoughts that you have as we start moving forward. We have a number of meetings, of course, with our budget timeline coming up. In order to talk about this further, we'll have, I think, total of three meetings with finance. Now, finance still has to do their job. They still are going to be meeting with the departments. They'll see if there's any extraneous stuff that we can potentially help to lessen the number, certainly. But I think that the overall forecast here is going to remain the same, that we're going to need to have an override. So I'll stop talking now.
I think we've all seen this coming for a while, and not just the select board, but most committees and most department heads. You know, it's tough when you live in a small town that doesn't have a lot of commercial revenue.
For sure.
And, you know, we as a board made a decision to tax the commercial rate at a residential rate so that we didn't run what small percentage of commercial that we have out of town. Having said that, I'm seeing and have seen in the last year and a half, 2 years, good progress toward encouraging businesses in town. But that's going to be a long-term process. It's not a short-term process. So in that interim, I mean, I think that it is what it is, you know. If this was a family budget and you had a mortgage, which is all of our encumbrances, right? And your mortgage rate went up, i.e. the schools,
Yep.
and you still had to pay for all the other things, you kind of have to figure out how you're going to do that.
Right.
So that's kind of what I see and how I see it.
Right.
So I'd like to hear, does anybody, like Mark, have something to say from finance?
Can we just keep it here?
Oh, yes, Carol, okay.
I agree. Your statement was spot on, and I think the only thing we've got to decide is whether we're going to just meet this year's budget dead shortfall, or, as Charlie suggested, double it up so that we don't have to rely on this year's free cash to be utilised in the FY25 budget. But other than that, I think all we can do is get the information out there, how much it's going to cost the taxpayer, and hope that they agree that our services are worth keeping. Because if we don't get an override, then we're going to see cuts across the board that we've never seen before.
Right.
And that's going to affect every department and every resident. So I think we just need to make sure that all the information is out there so that an informed, educated decision can be made.
Right.
I do think it's important, though, not to do a short-term Band-Aid,
Exactly.
because what if the town server goes down and we have no free cash?
Yeah.
You know, and that's our 911, that's all of our communications with the town, that's everything.
Right.
And I'm not trying to beat the scare drum, because nobody wants their taxes to go up less than I do.
Right. Right.
But that's the reality of
Yeah.
where we're at.
And anytime you're talking about taxes going up, it's scary, especially for people that are on fixed incomes, and that, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that, because that is scary. But I think that the alternative this year is scarier, and that's what we're up against.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Mark?
Well, thank you for
Early,
extending the invitation to attend. In one breath, it's good that we're on the same page. It's unfortunate that we are on the same page with regarding this. We, as a Finance Committee, put the big O word out about a month ago. And I think that, while your statement was perfectly fine, we can even shorten it, and that is, we can't possibly cut our way to a balanced budget.
Right.
There's no way that that can happen. Not that you need to call it up, but the Finance Committee is meeting on Wednesday, and we have on our agenda revisiting the projected deficit, the projected revenue, and the projected expenditures. And our fear is what we're working with right now is going to grow in the wrong direction. But we also have on our agenda is, you alluded to it, and I think Carol made mention of it too, free cash. Our financial management policies call for a 10-year plan to rid ourselves of relying on that for the annual budget. We've already postponed that for 2 years.
Right.
And frankly, we could postpone it for 22 more years because we need the free cash. But when you have a capital depreciation fund with $37,000 in it, you can't buy a fire hose.
Right.
And so we need to do something, you know, I hate to make light of this, but it's got to be big, go big or go home. It's got to be substantial. I would add to your point is that CIPC met recently, Capital Improvement Planning Committee. There's $500,000 of critical, urgent asks in front of that committee. That was not part of your equation. I'm not picking up that you missed something. I'm just
Right.
saying you got to add that into the equation.
Yeah,
So.
that's valid. Yep.
So we need to balance, you know, how much the taxpayer is willing to pick up for a new dump truck, pick up for an override, what's going to happen in Wachusett Regional School District. There's a lot to be done in the next 4 to 5 weeks, but I can't see how we could possibly miss having some type of override. That doesn't mean, and I don't think anyone's suggesting this, but the Finance Committee isn't waving the white flag and saying, well, it's going to be an override, so, you know, why bother? We want that as a last resort, at the smallest possible number, but as we've all said this evening, I don't think it can be averted.
Right.
Pensions have gone up, health insurance has gone up, regional dispatch has to be added. There are 5 or 6 can't touch, can't change, can't cut,
Right.
big items. So we can cut the library by $1,000 and the COA by $500, but
Gonna do anything.
that would cripple those organizations. Well, what good is that gonna do?
Right.
So, big job ahead of us.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Mark. So I'm glad to hear that we're all on the same page here. It's an unfortunate year. We saw it coming, but,
Well,
Here it
and
is.
To your point.
we thought it was gonna be last year.
I mean, of all of our encumbrances that have been unpredictable or somewhat consistent, Bay Path has been very consistent for so many years.
Agreed.
And for them to come back for an ask like that, I mean, that in and itself speaks volumes
Right,
as
right.
to the situation.
Everybody's
we're all
feeling
in,
it.
you
Yep.
know?
Yep, everybody's feeling it. And I think, too, we have to recognize that, you know, as Mark said, we can't cut our way to a balanced budget here. We asked the departments to put forth conservative budgets, and as far as I can see so far, and not having seen finance meet with those departments yet, but as far as I can tell, that's exactly what they did. So,
But based on the letters that they sent us, the impact it would have on every single department, from the town collector to, you know, the fire chief, the police chief, you name it, DPW, it's significant,
Yeah.
right,
so.
Keep in mind that last year, we did balance the budget by going to the stabilization fund for $86,000. We can't do that. There's not enough in there to avert an override this year.
Right.
So we need to keep a focus on stabilizing the stabilization fund. So I think you're going to see a proposal come out of Finance Committee that is going to rid us from reliance on cash flow, but there's some real pain associated with that.
yeah, I completely
Well,
agree.
and we can only deplete these accounts so far until, we can only borrow from Peter to pay Paul for so long, and we've been doing that long enough.
Right,
You know, it's really hard to say that, but that's the reality of it, so.
yep,
Plus, we already cut the select board salaries, so we can't do that.
I can't give up anymore. I'll have to pay to come to the meetings.
Right.
And I still don't have my
To
endorsement.
charge you dues.
yeah.
I'll have to pay dues to come to a meeting.
So, yeah, no, it's a tough year. This is just the first of many discussions that we'll have, I'm sure, and, you know, come May, what's the date? May 1st this year? 6th, sorry, May 6th. That'll be our annual town meeting, and then, just to start putting that word out there now, it'll be a requirement, if we do have an override on the warrant, it'll be a requirement to attend both town meeting and then go to the polls afterwards, in order to, you know, make your vote. So, it's two things that are needed, so prepare for both days. It's a Monday and a Tuesday. All right. Thank you, Mark. So I have select board correspondence. In correspondence, I do have some emails between Mark and myself regarding the town audit report. And Mark has asked me to attach those to the agenda and make them publicly available, so I am doing that. They are lengthy, so I'm not going to read them right now. But I am attaching them, and they will be part of the publicly available information for anybody who wishes to see them. Town Administrator's Report. Heather, you're up, if you
I'm
have
here.
anything.
Today's first day back. I know I spoke with Pam a little bit earlier today, and I spoke with Ryan, the contractor who does the gutters over at the library. So he was getting started this morning. I'll be working on meeting with all of the departments over the next week and a half, just to play catch-up and make sure they have everything they need. We do have quite a few deadlines coming up, so as we remember, June 30th is the deadline for a lot of the earmarks, not all, but quite a few of the earmarks, some grants and so forth. So between the budget, getting those pieces done and starting procurement for FY '25, we have a lot on our plate for the next few months. If the meeting was tomorrow, I'd have like another 2 sentences.
I figured.
I just don't yet, I'm sorry.
For anybody who's watching, today is Heather's very first day back from her parental leave. So we're happy to have her back, and glad she could be with us tonight, even though she's stepping in very much midstream at the moment. All right, public comment? No public comment? And so I am going to ask for a motion to move from regular session to executive session, to return to the regular meeting only to adjourn, and this needs to be a roll call vote. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, Kirk?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. And so we'll have a brief